Welcome back to Carolina This Week. It is back to school across most of the area. If your kids are not already back in school, tomorrow morning, Monday morning, they will be heading back. Dr. Cathy Jones from Coastal Carolina University joins us now, and you specialize in early childhood education.
Yes, I do. I'm the coordinator of that program.
This is an exciting time, I think, for a lot of parents because, one, they might be getting their kids out of the house after having them bug them all summer, and now the kids are getting to go back and learn a little bit. What steps should parents be taking? They probably, many parents should probably have started taking these steps a few weeks ago, but now that the school year is in swing, what are some steps you should start taking to ensure that your kids are going to have a good school year?
Tim, the most important thing is consistency. Parents, with all of our schedules, children get involved in extracurricular activities. It gets really hard sometimes to be consistent. And one of the worst things for children is, especially with behavior and social emotional development, is when they do something one time and mom and dad completely ignore it. And the next time they come down really hard on it. So they don't know where their boundaries are. They don't know exactly what's okay to do. So it's really important that parents be consistent in how they work with their children, their routines. That doesn't mean an occasional late night isn't okay. It just means that overall, you need that consistency.
So if you correct the behavior one time, correct it the next time, and the next time, and then eventually, I guess the hope is the behavior that's bad will stop, or the behavior that's good will continue.
Right, and you need to talk to your children. One of the things that I see often in some of the bigger stores that a lot of children are in is a parent will jerk a child or say no and not say why. Well, I don't automatically know at 4 or 5 or 6 or sometimes even 12 why I'm being told no. And children need to know why. Even if you enforce it and you say, this is how it's going to be, dad, mom, grandma, whoever believes that's what needs to happen, but this is why. And that's really important that children are talked to and understand why things are occurring and why things aren't okay.
As a parent of an almost 6-year-old and an almost 4-year-old, I know that consistency, because we watch Super Nanny here on ABC a lot, is a very important thing. But what about the pressure to succeed? And I know that some parents start that pressure early on, whether it's in athletics or academics. It seems like there's a fine line between too much pressure to succeed and maybe too little pressure to succeed. As a professional, where do you think that line is, and how should you apply any type of pressure to succeed or not fail?
One of my favorite books is Dr. David Elkind's book, The Hurried Child. And he talks about that and how in our society, and it's a couple of decades old, how in our society we push children to grow up so quickly and don't give them time to be children. My children are grown. Now I'm concerned about my grandchildren. I did some things right and some things I wish I'd done differently, but primarily the thing I think, and the research shows this, is every child needs to know that there's one adult in their life that is going to support them and love them even if they mess up. So I think that is what is behind some of our biggest successors, some of the people we really admire. I don't know the secret to having an Olympic star at 15. I don't know if it's good or it's bad. I do know that children who are pressured all the time and the standard is too high and not reasonable often have a sense of failure that follows them the rest of their life.
Let's talk about some of the more rote, basic things about sending kids back to school. One of them is bedtime. I can remember being so angry when I was a little boy because I'd be in bed before the sun went down before school, and I imagine my son probably feels the same way, that we put them to bed I think around 7:30. How much sleep should children be getting at different ages? Say for the 5-year-old going into kindergarten on up to the 8th grader.
There are a lot of studies out there about sleep. I think most studies sort of average in around 8 or 9 hours. Some children go to sleep really easily. Other children lay there for a really long time. I think each child's different. And if your child goes to bed and within a half hour they're falling asleep, that's probably a good bedtime. If an hour and a half later they're still needing one more drink of water and whining, then maybe you need to revisit what time the child goes to bed. The bigger problem a teacher sees is not that child who goes to bed too early, but that child who doesn't get restful sleep enough. And that is really difficult. A child cannot be successful if they're tired. That's just all there is to it. Something else that's really important is that you put your children to bed, not send your children to bed. Young children who are just sent to bed, it's often very difficult for them because they need that reassurance that everything's going to be okay, that you'll be there in the morning. Sometimes the dark is a little frightening depending on what cartoons or shows they've seen. It all comes rushing back to their mind. So putting your children to bed at a consistent time, and if they're sleepy, they'll go to sleep. A routine is really important for that too. Read a book, sing a song, say a prayer, whatever it is in your family, that's a routine for going to sleep.
I know you're not a nutritionist, but when I grew up, I think I had McDonald's maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Other than that, it was mom making too many vegetables and baked meat. And, you know, I ate pretty boring, but you know what? In hindsight,
That was good.
it was perfect.
Yeah.
How does what you feed your child affect how they're going to perform in the classroom?
What we know is that too much food without nutrients doesn't support the child having a sustained energy level. So, yeah, will it immediately fill them up and then be okay for a while? Yes, but it won't carry them through. It also doesn't set good lifelong habits, and we seem to be going back to that over and over, this consistency, routine habits, but that's what matters. And when you get to be experienced as I am, you realize that some of those habits from your very young years still stick with you.
Well, and it is tough on parents these days. My wife works full-time. Believe it or not, I work a really crazy schedule, and it's hard I think it's hard for the parents to make all of these things happen for their children, to make the routine happen when I think sometimes as parents, with both having jobs, our routines are pretty grueling.
I understand that. I think one thing that we do in this world, and it harks back to your question about helping your child succeed, is sometimes we overload them with extracurricular activities. When my children were growing up, we went to church, so they got to do one church thing and one other thing every week. Even when they got to be middle school and teenagers, if you were playing basketball and you went to MYF, that was all you got to do. You didn't get to do anything else. So I think parents have to be very selective that their children aren't overloaded with activities outside of school. You asked too about middle schoolers. One thing we think is when children get in middle school and early teens that they don't need as much sleep. Actually, they need more.
Wow.
Because so many things are going physically on in their body, and they need to sleep so that that can happen and happen in a good way.
Yeah, and with middle school comes so many more problems. I know that, at least in my life, that's when some of the teen drama started.
Absolutely.
And I imagine any parent of a teenager out there, and yourself included, would probably agree with me.
My daughter teaches high school, and I always say to her, I don't know how you teach high schoolers. She said, it's okay, Mom, I don't know how you teach little kids. So, you know, I just think each age group has its own set of challenges and special things.
Well, Dr. Cathy Jones, I think you gave us some wonderful advice this morning, and for the parents who are going to be sending their kids off to school tomorrow morning, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.